Celestial Refugees, Part 3. As the USS Pioneer made its cautious approach toward the desert planet, an atmosphere of subdued urgency pervaded the ship. The crew, having made their decision, now faced the task of preparing for their uncertain landing. In the ship's makeshift lab, Dr. Nia Patel and Leo Rodriguez were huddled over the air purification system schematics. The planet's atmosphere, primarily composed of nitrogen and trace gases, required them to modify the purifiers to make the air breathable. Nia, her brow furrowed in concentration, adjusted the filters, while Leo worked on recalibrating the system's software. If we tweak the carbon scrubbers like this, it should compensate for the high nitrogen levels, Nia suggested, pointing to a complex diagram on the screen. Right, and I'll program the system to cycle more frequently to maintain balance, Leo replied, his fingers deftly moving across the console. Meanwhile, Captain Alara Tran and Sergeant Alexei Ivanov were in the storage area, taking stock of their food and water supplies. Rows of containers, some now worryingly depleted, lined the walls. "We need to ration strictly," Alara said, marking their inventory on her datapad. "If we're careful, we can stretch these supplies while we figure out our next steps." Alexei nodded, his eyes scanning the supplies. "I'll work out a rationing plan. We'll make it last." In the communication room, the crew gathered to compose a distress signal. The room was silent except for the quiet tapping of keys as they encoded their message, detailing their situation and coordinates. "The signal is ready," Alara announced, her hand hovering over the transmission button. "Once we send this, anyone out there could pick it up, friend or foe." Alexei met her gaze, a stern look in his eyes. "It's a risk, but it's one we have to take. We need help, and this is the best way to get it." With a collective breath, Alara pressed the button, sending their message into the cosmos. They all knew this was a pivotal moment, a call for help cast into the vast unknown of space. As the Pioneer continued its descent towards the desert planet, the crew braced themselves. They had done all they could to prepare for the landing and the challenges that awaited them. Now, all that was left was to face the unknown with the hope that their call for help would be answered. The USS Pioneer, with its crew braced for the unknown, began its descent towards the desert planet. At first, everything proceeded as expected. The ship, though battered, responded well to Captain Alara Tran's skilled command. The crew, each strapped into their seats, watched the planet's surface grow closer on the monitors, a vast expanse of desolation greeting them. Alara's hands were steady on the controls, her focus unyielding. "Initial descent looks good. Atmosphere entry in T-60 seconds, she announced, her voice calm yet tinged with anticipation. However, as the Pioneer penetrated the upper layers of the atmosphere, trouble began. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring through the cabin. "What's happening?" Leo shouted over the din. Alara's eyes were fixed on the readings. "The atmosphere, it's denser than our records indicated. It's throwing off our entry angle." The ship bucked and rolled, struggling against the unexpectedly thick atmospheric resistance. Alara fought with the controls, her training and instincts pushed to their limits. "I'm trying to stabilize. Brace for a rough ride." In the back, Nia Patel clutched her armrests, her knuckles white. Beside her, Alexei Ivanov's cybernetic enhancements whirred and clicked, adjusting to the ship's violent movements. "Everyone, secure yourselves as best as you can," he barked. Leo, his eyes wide with concern, glanced at the ship's failing systems. "We're losing auxiliary power. Diverting all remaining power to thrusters and structural integrity," Alara responded, her voice strained under the pressure. The ship plunged through the dense atmosphere, a fiery streak against the sky of the alien world. Inside, the crew was tossed about, the gravity of their situation mirrored by the physical forces acting upon them. Hold on. Elara yelled, as she executed a series of rapid maneuvers, each one a calculated risk to reduce their speed and angle of descent. With a final, desperate effort, Elara managed to level the ship, mere seconds before impact. The Pioneer hit the planet's surface with a jarring force, skidding across the rugged terrain, a cloud of dust and debris billowing in its wake. For a moment, there was only the sound of creaking metal and the crew's ragged breaths. Then, as the dust settled, an eerie silence fell. They had landed, not gracefully, but they were alive. Slowly, the crew unstrapped themselves, checking for injuries and assessing the state of their ship. Though shaken, they were intact. "We made it," Nia murmured, a sense of disbelief in her voice. Elara, her hands finally leaving the controls, let out a long breath. "Yes, we did. But this is just the beginning." Outside the windows, the landscape of the desert planet stretched out before them, a new world, full of challenges and potential. The crew of the Pioneer, though weary, knew that their journey of survival was far from over. In the aftermath of their harrowing landing on the desert planet, the crew of the USS Pioneer faced a new, dire situation. The air purifier, essential for their survival, was damaged during the rough landing. The atmosphere inside the ship grew increasingly stale, a silent timer counting down their remaining breathable air. Elara and Leo, working with focused intensity, attempted to bring the ship's computer and AI back online. Amidst a tangle of wires and flickering screens, their efforts were a race against time. "We need the diagnostics to assess the full extent of the damage," Elara said, her hands moving deftly over the damaged console. Meanwhile, Nia and Alexei were in the bowels of the ship, examining the air purifier. The damage was extensive, pipes were bent, filters shattered, and critical components unresponsive. "We might be able to patch it up manually, at least temporarily," Nia suggested, her voice laced with hope, though her eyes told a different story. Back in the control room, with a spark and a flicker, the AI system finally whirred back to life, casting an artificial glow across Elara and Leo's determined faces. "Systems online. Diagnostics running," the AI announced in its emotionless tone. Leo, his gaze fixed on the purifier's schematics, worked tirelessly, his hands a blur. But the AI's next announcement cut through the air like a cold blade. "Air purification system is beyond repair." A heavy silence fell upon the room. The gravity of their situation was clear: without the air purifier, their time was severely limited. In the storage room, the oxygen level indicator was a stark reminder of their dwindling supply. 15 minutes of oxygen left, Alexei said grimly, his voice echoing the urgency of their plight. Leo, refusing to give in to despair, doubled his efforts on the damaged purifier. His hands moved with a mechanic's precision, trying every possible workaround he knew. "I can fix this. I have to fix this," he muttered under his breath, his resolve unwavering despite the overwhelming odds. The rest of the crew, caught between hope and the harsh reality of their situation, watched Leo's desperate attempts. Each passing minute was a countdown to the unthinkable. Elara, standing amidst her crew, felt the weight of command heavier than ever. They had survived the vastness of space, a catastrophic collision, and a perilous landing, only to be brought to the brink by the air they breathed. Yet, in the face of despair, her resolve did not waver. "We're not giving up," she declared. "Not now, not ever. We'll find a way." As Leo continued his frantic work on the purifier, the rest of the crew rallied, determined to support him in any way they could. Together, they faced the looming shadow of suffocation, clinging to hope in the dwindling minutes they had left.